Hello.
Hey, what's up? How you doing today, man?
Not too bad. I drove home from Providence today. I was there with a couple of my friends from this band called Neats.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. You play instruments yourself?
No, I'm a singer, but I'm not in a band or anything. I just know a bunch of people who are all in this band, and I was there doing some stuff with them.
I love the character of Xavier. Just completely fantastic. His improv is 110% top notch.
He's stellar. I love working with him, and like his ability to like think on his feet is fantastic, and I can't say enough good things about Xavier.
Oh yes, the Raven's call is quite strong with that one.
Yeah.
Oh yes, I see. Yes, quite a powerful thing you have there, Xavier. Oh, now allow me to get situated properly upon my throne.
Yes.
And we may begin.
Take your time, Master. Take your time.
I'm trying out these new bamboo sandals. They're supposed to be good for you.
Ah, yes. I believe they add +5 agility as well as +2 to stealth.
Yes, of course.
Oh, wait. Those are the wooden ones. Never mind. It's -2 to stealth.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rez TKF Podcast. Today's esteemed guest is none other than Spencer, the Sodaman of Fishtank.Live. Spencer, how you doing today, man?
Really good. It's great to be here. I appreciate you interviewing me.
I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Before we get into anything, would you rather go by Spencer or Sodaman?
Spencer, I guess. That's like my actual name. I know a lot of people call me Sodaman, which is very interesting. I guess it makes sense because that was like the first like really big public role that I had. But it's still strange because I have conversations with people where that's, you know, what they refer to me as more than my real name, which
it's become part of your identity now. Huh?
Yeah, it's sort of in a weird way.
Getting familiar with donning the red glasses and the hat, almost similar to Daredevil.
Yeah, I guess so. I didn't keep any of the wardrobe that stayed at the tank. I know some people like they had brought in stuff from outside, but I had their wardrobe order most of the stuff, so I left it there when I left.
Oh,
but
okay.
I suppose it's there waiting for me when I go back.
Yeah, you can redon your superhero outfit.
Yeah,
luckily,
something like that.
You didn't sell yours online. Everybody was selling theirs for a pretty penny.
Yeah, I don't know. I understand why people did it, and there was a demand. I definitely got, not just for the costume, but also there were a lot of people in my like message requests on Twitter that were like, if you can get me 1 coin, I will give you so much money. And I was just like, I don't want to do that. The only things that I kept from set were I took like a bag with some coins there was like 1 silver and 1 gold that were just for me. And then I have like 1 crate of the Zipp cans, which I'm like signing and giving to friends of mine, but I'm not selling any costume pieces or any props or anything.
Yeah, not giving into that filthy demand.
I don't need the money. I got paid enough from working there, you know.
It's funny because I know you see I got some old previous Zipp models here.
Yeah, I see the season 2 ones. I have over on a shelf over there it's not in mint condition. It's like crushed and empty, but I have a season 2 Zipp can. The fish tank fans, they love to be gaslit, and they're also, in a very weird way, like, they're very not gullible about certain things, but if you tell them something they kind of want to hear, which is like, oh, I have props and maybe you can get one, like, they want to be able to have that, like, access, so they'll be willing to believe you, like, spinning them a yarn, which I think is sort of an essential part of the show, is the ability of production or contestants to like gaslight the viewers in a certain way.
Yeah, a bit like a magician's trickery.
Yeah. Fish Tank for me was an environment where you had to learn a lot of improv, not just like while you're acting, but just using the materials you have and being efficient and like not wasting anything and having things that like, you know, you don't think about like a tree root as being an interesting prop, but it's like, well, we don't want to just throw these away, so we have to like find something for that. When we were first getting the airsoft guns, before we realized like, okay, it's better to just kind of pay a little bit more than we want to and have guns that like won't malfunction and won't break and are like more durable. There were like some early prototypes that were just like very cheap ones that we'd like bought on Amazon or whatever, and one of them broke, and then it was like we ultimately like took it apart and glued it to one of the like vampire helmets And it looked really cool having like the two halves of this plastic gun on either side. And then I know Goblin was like the mastermind of making a bunch of props. He did a lot of the like custom vampire helmets. There was one that had like a deck of cards on it, I remember. There were a bunch that had like blood, and he had like sprayed foam and made like fake gore on them.
Oh, that's
and he did all the vests for the chest rigs. I can't remember what he made them out of, but I want to say they were like Pee-wee football vests or something, but I can't recall. And then he like cut them to size for the different contestants and then spray painted them yellow and then screwed in mounts for the phones for the chest cams and everything. There were so many people working there. Even during pre-production, there were like, I want to say 10 or 15 people over the long haul that came, to help build that. And, I really appreciate like everyone who helped out, because they were all like so hardworking and so talented. And it was very fun to like work on a project like that where everyone was pulling really hard to make this thing happen. And there was never like a moment of doubt where we were like, oh, is this not gonna, like, the whole time we knew like this is gonna be great and we're gonna make something amazing. And to see it like succeed as it has, feels really good.
Your energy, all of y'all's energy being so hype about the project definitely bled onto everybody else, because it was a very positive reception of the entire season, man. It was amazing. Spencer, when you are not fulfilling your role as the esteemed purveyor of the refreshing beverage known as Zipp, what do you do in your spare time? What's a week in your shoes like?
I don't know. I spend a lot of time like working on writing projects. Of course, now I'm like streaming more, so I'm doing more like public facing stuff than I ever have previously, which is interesting. But I spend a lot of time working on like either freelance writing projects or writing for tabletop, or I'm working on a campaign which will ultimately be streamed with some of the Fishtank people, but I can't reveal anybody just yet. Beyond that, I like to play video games. Right now I've been playing Total War Warhammer 3 is like the newest game that I've gotten that I've been playing a lot of. And just the stuff I play on stream, Team Fortress 2, Risk of Rain, Sea of Thieves, stuff like that. I like games where it's sort of like there isn't a lot of writing, weirdly. I like games where it's like you just sort of hop in and you do something that feels fulfilling in and of itself, because I find I spend a lot of time like either reading other people's writing or writing my own stuff that like when I'm sort of relaxing, I do just kind of want to turn my brain off and go onto autopilot a little bit. But aside from that, I run a tabletop game in a system called Lancer, which is like a mech RPG, and then I play in a couple of 5e games, one of which is set in a homebrew setting and one of which is set in Greyhawk, which is an old D&D setting from the 70s. But that's, I mean, it's a lot of writing and a lot of playing tabletop, as I'm sure people would assume.
You seem like writing is a real passion of yours. What got you so fond of writing and, like creating worlds and characters and different personalities? And
I think like I always was like a kid who would like run around and want to do like play games outside and like run around and like pretend to be soldiers or pretend to be ninjas or something. And then like I took like a creative writing class in high school that was like very formative. I had a teacher who was, took notice of my work, and I did not have like a very good work ethic in high school, and I never went to college or anything because I hated being in school for the most part.
I have ADHD, so I totally relate.
Like I can't focus, and I had this thing where like if I liked a teacher or I liked a class, I would get like a 98 in the class, and if I didn't, I wouldn't do homework. I just wouldn't pay attention. I couldn't make
they had
myself
to, like, spark your interest.
I didn't have like the discipline to be like, okay, school is important and you need to focus. I would just be like, well, I don't give a shit about geometry. Like I'll get a 70 because I can sleep through this and do okay on tests. Like it doesn't matter. So I had a creative writing class that like did spark my interest. And the thing was that the teacher like came to me and was like, you need to like do this because you have a talent for it and you need to work at it in a way that you're like not used to doing, because being able to kind of coast through with okay grades is like easy for you, but you have to like actually apply yourself and work hard. And nobody had ever really like said something that like that to me, growing up. So it was like having a sort of positive influence that had like looked at me and gone like, okay, you have like a talent for this, but you need to work at it.
Yeah,
know?
You had someone who saw your potential, a possible mentor figure who saw your potential and actually pushed you and challenged you to challenge yourself, which nobody had ever taken the time to do.
And I think that's like really important for young people, is to like find someone who is going to push you to excel, because I think that a lot of people right now especially are very like lost and very adrift in their lives, and like you need to find the thing that like you love doing, and you need to like work really hard at that. And even if you fail and you don't do well and you don't make a lot of money, you have to like keep doing it, because you know, for me it's like I graduated high school 10 years ago now, you know, in 2014. This was a class I took my senior year in the fall. It's something where like I've been writing and, you know, running D&D games and like doing characters and doing work and in writers' rooms online for years and years, and it's like now it's starting to kind of come together into a thing that I can like make money doing and have as a career. And it's, if you're in a creative field and you're passionate about it, you have to like push through that, I think, you know, because there may be a lot of years where you're just like, oh, what am I doing, or am I wasting my time? And I definitely felt that, but it was something where I was like, well, this is, I mean, really, like, writing's the only thing I like to do, and it's also one of the only things that I'm like good at, that it can be like a main skill that I do, you know?
Yeah, and it's more tangible than ever now to be able to make a lucrative living.
I also, I am very lucky where it's not like in the old days where you kind of like had to write novels or something and like get a publishing deal. Fishtank is the most recent one of these that's happened, but like, you know, there's been other times. Like I worked on a movie called Hostage Museum years ago that was like a collection of skits and like absurd like 3D animation and weird stuff, where it was the same thing, where it was like a friend of mine knew someone who was making this thing, and then I just kept showing up to shoots and being like, yeah, I'll work on that. I'd love to do that. And I think that's just what it is being flexible and being willing to go to different like weird
like
things,
being flexible but kind of also forcing yourself into situations and not passing them up. Being
flexible but also being willing to like get an opportunity and kind of like make it known that you want more of whatever it is they're giving you. Like I know I said this during the confessional that I did, but like when I showed up to Fishtank, I was like there to interview, to be an extra, to be like a vampire, you know. And it was just like I hung out with Jet like that day, and then he was like, well, we need extra help like building these covers and like doing all this physical labor stuff. And I'm not like a construction worker. I was in the Marine Corps, so I'm in relatively good shape, but you know, I don't have a background in doing any of that or using power tools or doing carpentry or anything. But it was just, I was like, well, this is something to do and it's an interesting project, so I just kept going. And then there kept being opportunities to write things and to do character work, and I just kept being like, yeah, I'll stay to do writing, or like, you know, pushing to get more creative stuff done.
How did you end up finding out about these auditions? Like, how did you end up in a position to where you could assert yourself as a writer with Fishtank?
So the thing is that there's a friend of mine, he knows Jet and like had worked as, I think, like kind of doing like background work, like production stuff on season 1 and a little bit of pre-production on season 2 as well. And he just knew that Jet was like looking for more people to do either extra work or different things to help out, and figured that like I would be kind of a good fit for a very like strange creative project like Fishtank is.
I did see on one of your streams that you said you actually ended up doing quite a bit of writing for the season 2.5. So did you help write for the character of Sodaman and for the story of the entire season as well?
The character of Sodaman was something that like Jet had in his head, you know, kind of bouncing around. Of like, he had like rough sketches of all of the different NPCs, and he kind of proposed to different people which ones they wanted to do. And there was one day where we were just driving in a U-Haul to get more like wood for... There was like a middle lane in the map called the Trench, and that whole wall, we were getting all the wood to build that wall.
Yeah.
And that day we just happened to have time where there was like 2 hours where both of us were alone, and he just kind of pitched the character to me and was like, you know, you have like a D&D background and you know how to like RP, and that's something you've been clear about. So if you want to do this character, like I have an opportunity for you to do this. And I just said yes, because it seemed like a really cool thing to do.
Yeah.
You know,
you didn't really know too much about MDE or Fishtank.Live before working with them?
Well, that's interesting. So I knew a lot about MDE. I was like a big fan of like the core 3 guys. I started watching them. I think the first video I saw was called Ideas Man, which is from like 2012 or something, like an old MDE sketch. You know, I was familiar with their stuff, and I was sort of familiar with Fish Tank because a bunch of my like IRL friends were like big Fish Tank fans and were always like trying to get me to watch it. But the thing about me is I find it very hard to like watch a show start to finish. Like I have been trying to finish The Sopranos for like 2 years, and there's so much of it.
Don't tell Brian that.
Yeah, having to... I think I might have had this conversation with him while we were there, but it's like having to sit down and like not do anything for a full hour and then do that like, you know, 70 times to get through a full show is difficult. And especially like with a live streaming thing where it's like, oh, well, it never turns off. The show is, there's always more show. It's very difficult for me to like focus for that long. So I had watched clips and I kind of like knew the general atmosphere and knew what I was getting into, but I wasn't super familiar with like every person and every person's personality. Kind
of had just a pretty much a little outline of it.
Yeah, like a rough outline. And there were certain things where like if we were writing for someone, this didn't happen as much during the show, but like during pre-production, if we were writing something for someone specifically, Goblin would be like, okay, go watch like, you know, this bit and this bit from their season to kind of give you an idea of like who they are.
Yeah. Well, at least you had video footage to kind of like get a little bit from, you know?
Yeah.
A random question for you, because you mentioned that you were in the Marine Corps. So what made you want to join the Marine Corps?
So I was sort of like a wiry, like very skinny kid growing up, and I was like not very athletic as a teenager, and I smoked a lot of pot, and I wasn't like really doing anything. And again, there was like a long time where I knew I wanted to do writing, but I didn't know how that was going to translate like into a meaningful career. Smoking a lot of weed and just being really lazy and like not pursuing the creative things that I should have been. And I was like, I need something to like jumpstart, you know, myself and like put me in a place where I'm unfamiliar and uncomfortable and I'm like doing things that I wouldn't normally do.
Snap you out of your routine.
Yeah, it was something where like I just was like trying to think like, what is the furthest thing from just like sitting in my small hometown, like smoking weed with these other like stoners who like are not doing anything or going anywhere. And eventually I was like, I guess the furthest thing is I could join the military. And it was very funny because the Marine Corps has a lot of difficulty, even before now it's the whole military is having difficulty like recruiting people, but the Marine Corps does, because like unless you're someone who wants to join the Marine Corps already, like it's very hard for them to convince people who are not already deciding to. So I called the recruiting office and I was like, hey, I want to enlist in the Marine Corps. And the recruiter literally said back to me, he was like, you do? Are you... Oh, okay, let me get the paper, hold on. And sounded like very like confused that I was cold calling them to join, because normally they have to like text people and like follow up and like chase people around to get them to even like consider it, you know. I didn't have a very exciting career. I was only in for about a year, and then I got these like injuries. I had bilateral tibial plateau stress fractures, which are like the bone on the bottom of your knee. I was just like wearing through it to a point where I had to like, I was in a wheelchair for like a couple of months while it was like healing and setting.
Damn.
And then at the end of that, they just medically discharged me because they were like, it doesn't make sense for us to put you through more training if your bones are just going to disintegrate, you know? And it was one of those things where at the time I was like super despondent about the whole thing, but I'm glad that it worked out the way that it did, because it kind of put me on the path to like ultimately in a very weird roundabout way get to where I am. I don't know. It was something that it taught me a lot about like how to have discipline and how to like, you know, meet goals by just like doing the same thing to progress toward them every day, you know. But I don't have a lot of like cool or exciting stories. I never went on a combat deployment or anything like that. I didn't, you know,
Well, that's
do
a cool
anything
story
crazy.
itself. I mean, you felt like things weren't pushing you in life. You felt like stagnant. You felt you wanted to change in life. You wanted more from yourself, and nobody around you was challenging you or even inspiring you or aspiring you to, or making you aspire to do more. And your friends obviously might have been indulging as well. So no, that's a great story right there. You, rather than waiting for something to fall in your hands, you went out there, you pursued an option, you took it, and now look at where you are now. So I mean, that's actually that's a fucking huge decision that you made a big change to your life, because not a lot of people have the balls to make that first step. You know what I mean? To even just quit smoking weed or to slow down on things or to stop drinking or whatever. So, I mean, that takes a lot of balls for you to say, you know what, let me throw myself into a completely different routine. You know, even though you had been discharged medically, you still pursued your own path of like, no, I'm still going to stay on course. You know, you didn't diverge.
I appreciate that. Thank you. The thing I always think about, though, is like I say the military, and then people assume, you know, certain things that you're like involved in a war or that you did some crazy thing with a bunch of guns and explosions. And the reality of the military is like much more mundane than that. And of course, there are like parts where it's like very scary and people are in real danger and, you know, but a lot of people, in fact, like the vast majority of people's military experience is like, you know, you go in and you like, you're a janitor first and foremost. You like have to clean your area and clean your barracks and everything. And then you also like have some sort of specialization of, you know, whether it's, mine was engineering, but, you know, like some people fix radios or some people, you know, fix trucks or
repair the tanks and like, shit like that.
You know.
Yeah, so I've always had like kind of a neutral standpoint on it, but I see the value in the camaraderie, the sense of brotherhood. A lot of my friends who have joined or family members have same thing, where kind of just maybe had no direction or maybe their fathers weren't in their lives and such, you know, so it helped them kind of find a compass of sorts.
I think that like the people who really like the military does well for them are people who are like, they're directionless and they need like something to like be a compass for them and guide them toward something. A lot of people, that ends up being their experiences. They go in with a sort of idea of like, oh, I'm gonna get to be, you know, the guy from Call of Duty, and then they get there and it's like, okay, you're gonna spend a lot of time like shining shoes and like, you know, making sure that ribbons are perfectly aligned and like sewing in name tapes and sewing in rank insignia and like
doing actual studying.
Doing all this like minute stuff that like you don't imagine yourself doing, you know, from the sort of civilian or like pre-entering perspective. And then they're like, oh, but I just wanted to like shoot a machine gun, you know, and jump out of a plane or whatever.
They wanted to do
like,
the slide. Was it the slide cancel?
They want to do a dolphin dive is what that's why they enlisted, is they want to learn how to do a dolphin dive.
When I would watch your streams, you had some crazy fucking inside lore on like Diablo 1, Diablo 2, and various other games that came out back in the day. And I was like, the way he's talking about these, he's talking about it like he was there when it came out. This ain't just the guy who watched YouTube videos on these. Was Diablo 1 and 2 a big inspiration for you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because like, the Diablo series is one that I've always loved, and the later games are kind of like the lore is less serious and it gets more cartoony as time goes on. But like the earlier ones, the first two especially, that are like that sort of gothic horror, like definitely inspired me. Especially like all my early D&D games when I was like a little kid or like a teenager were just me trying to like recreate Diablo in D&D and like try to do that. I've had those games since I was a kid. My dad and my uncle like got me into PC gaming when I was like 4, I think, you know.
Same.
So that's the thing, is I've been playing games, even though these games like came out in the 90s, which is when I was born, you know. I've been playing PC games and like different RPGs and stuff for like a long time. And I also have always, like, they always imparted me this idea of, like, oh, there are, like, older games from even before you were born that are, like, worth getting into, like the old, like, Gauntlet games on arcade, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And I had an arcade when I was a kid that's closed now, that was in Connecticut, that had, like, a lot of old arcade machines, even dating back to, like, the 80s, that, you know, they would take me to and show me these, like, older games. So I was exposed to a lot of, like, older media that I don't think, like, a lot of kids, even my age, would have been exposed to, because I had people in my life who were like showing me these things and being like,
showed you the ropes. And
it's also, there's other like movies and music like showing me, you know, old like Sabbath records or like Led Zeppelin records or stuff that like if you're in your 20s you might not have been exposed to as much if you didn't have someone who was kind of showing you that. Like my uncle's favorite band was a band called Dinosaur Jr. that are like a sort of like distortion heavy kind of not quite shoegaze band, but like kind of punk shoegaze band, I guess. And it was something that I was exposed to, and I knew about all this like cool music that and stuff that like a lot of other kids I grew up with like didn't know about because I had people who were like showing me cool art. And
they showed you the underground stuff.
Yeah, it impacted me like as a writer definitely, because even when I was like 13 or in my early teens, I was able to pull on like a much wider range of references, not just in terms of like literature, but in terms of like culture that I felt like a lot of my peers were not able to do. And I feel very lucky that I was, given like a big collection of CDs and like a big collection of movies to watch. And like I was afforded like whenever my dad would like, or someone in the family would get a new computer, they would give me the old one. So I always had like a Dell like desktop tower that I could use to like do things or write on or like experiment with like, play around with like Audacity or some other like pirated like art program to kind of like just get a feel for like what I liked to do. Yeah,
they kept you busy in cool ways, dude. That's fucking amazing. I have an uncle just like that, pretty much showed me the ropes on like all kinds of things. He showed me like OG anime. He taught me PC gaming. Same thing when I was 4 years old. Before I was even in school, I could boot up the computer and bring up Duke Nukem. And Diablo 1. Yeah, man. And those games were the fucking amazing. And you're absolutely right. It does catch you on to all these references from like 80s movies and TV shows and music and all this stuff that you feel a little bit ahead of the curve. And now you see like teens and people in their early 20s and such and mid 20s they're just catching on to a lot of that stuff. And you're like, it sometimes makes you feel older, but then you just got to remember, hey, I was taught the good shit way younger.
Yeah, I think we live, despite our problems, I think we live in a very cool era because it's like you have like streaming services that show people music and movies where it's just like, here's every song that's ever been made. Here's every movie that has ever been made that you can just go watch. And like when I was a kid, that didn't exist. So it was like you had to have someone who was cool, who like was like, hey kid, here's my DVD collection of stuff I own, and like or
the VHS tapes, or they had to Kazaa or LimeWire their shit.
Yeah, and so it's like now kids have the ability to, even if they don't have like an adult like mentor or whatever that can show them this stuff, they can like go on Spotify and go listen to like weird, they can go find Frank Zappa without having a dad who owns every Frank Zappa vinyl. And
even going on YouTube, they can just go down a rabbit hole.
You can like find so much stuff now that like, especially if you're like a young creative, can influence you, on like what you're gonna make. I remember being 14 and my mom was like, have you seen Pulp Fiction? And I was like, no. And she was like, you should watch this movie. And she forgot about the basement scene in the pawn shop, which she remembered as it was happening. And I remember us having this like really uncomfortable moment of like that going on and me being like, why did you show me this movie? But the dialogue in Pulp Fiction is like so good, and all of Tarantino's movies is so incredible.
Say what again, motherfucker?
Yeah, like just the snappiness of the lines and the way that they talk like people have a conversation in real life, but just the like maximally cool version of that. And that's like
after a couple of bumps.
I don't necessarily want to, one for one like take his writing style or anything like that, but it was something that from a young age I was like, oh, I need to be able to write dialogue that like is the way that people actually talk and is grounded in reality and isn't like I'm writing a scene for a script. It's like, no, what would these two people be saying if they were just talking to each other?
Kind of like early Clerks or like Kevin Smith work.
Yeah, Kevin Smith's another one. My mom is a huge Kevin Smith fan, so she like showed me Clerks when I was like 12, so it's like I grew up watching all of these movies like that one and Mallrats and Dogma and you know,
yeah, dude.
Yeah, like a lot of other kids like just didn't get shown or like found, you know, when they were much older and
When
like
it was
went
put on
back
Netflix, pretty much.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And I feel very lucky in a weird way because I kind of, from the time I was, you know, like in elementary school, was getting shown like cool music and cool movies and like different stuff that like would all kind of connect together. And my dad would be like, oh, here's this like Led Zeppelin record where they like reference like stuff from Tolkien, from Middle Earth, and then like go read the books so that this song makes sense to you. And then I would do that, and it would like give me the ability to like to view things as sort of connected multimedia, and to be able to like reference things in my creative work that you know, tie into those like kind of older things in a way that doesn't come off as like too forced.
Yeah,
you know?
Like sparks someone where it's like, hey, it
Yeah.
could be related to that. I was gonna say, with all that
Yeah.
lore love, you must really be a big fan of Amon Amarth, like with all the lore that they put in there of Norse mythology and shit.
I'm not familiar, actually.
Oh, it's a Viking metal band. So I guess
man.
you could consider it melodic death metal.
Okay, yeah. See, it's interesting. I am not like a huge metal guy, but there are like a few bands. I really like Opeth. I really like Mastodon. There's like a black metal band called Black Magic SS, which is, you know, very right-wing imagery, not for the faint of heart, but they make very cool like psychedelic rock black metal. But I haven't, like, that's one of the things that I've always sort of meant to do, is get more into the like lore heavy like metal bands. I will definitely write that down and send it to me at some point, because I will listen to their discography.
Yeah, you're looking for more folk metal type stuff.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I always appreciate when like an artist isn't just making songs about a subject, but when they're like building a world. I always want, you know, the audience or the reader of my work to like imagine that there's much more complexity, and then that way, if there's more, you know, if we do another 0.5 season, or like in a D&D game, whenever the next session is, I can always, if I find out that one of my players or a lot of the viewers are interested in something, I can write more of that thing that they like and kind of flesh out whatever part of the world they're interested in knowing about.
Yeah, you'll be like Fish Tank Kojima, man. You'll be able to bring your references back.
And I would love to do that. I don't want to say that I'm that good, but you know, the idea that I could be secretly masterminding things for a long time, I would love to be afforded that opportunity.
Hell yeah, man. I mean, hey, it definitely sounds like they're really loving your work. All the fans really love your work and everything, so I have no doubts that they'll bring you back for plenty more future content. You know,
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, they already have, so. You said on Twitter that you are now over a year sober, which congratulations on that. That's no easy feat.
Thank you. Yeah.
What were you struggling with, and what made you want to get sober? I know we talked about your course in the military kind of changed your course a little bit, but what were you indulging in, and then how hard was it to kick that habit?
Yeah, so I was an alcoholic and a drug addict. I did a number of things. When I was in high school, I smoked a lot of weed. And then it was very strange. When I was in my late teens, it sort of, this switch flipped where it used to be a very calming thing for my anxiety, and then it started making me very paranoid, so I stopped doing that. And then I was using benzodiazepine medication, which is like anti-anxiety meds, but I was taking far more than is recommended, and was doing it, you know, in much greater frequency than you're supposed to, where it's like, you know, the thing that I was doing was medication called Klonopin, where it's like a 1 milligram that you're supposed to take if you're like having a panic attack in an emergency, and I was taking much more than 1 milligram, and I was doing it, you know, every day. And
was it just to like stable you out, or were you just really feeling that bad at nerves?
I think some of it was that I was very anxious. I definitely like suffered from, you know, mental illness that I was not treating properly, and I think that was what like led to it. And it also, there was a lot of time, again, like now I feel very happy and very hopeful of my future, but there was a long time where it was like I was writing for like, I was making no money, and you know, I didn't have a lot of things, and then I like went into the military, and I got out of the military, and then I didn't like know what the path forward looked like, so I was just, it was like an easy out. And then I've done other things. I did cocaine for a little while, and you know, that was on the show, the caffeine powder that Jimmy had. It was very funny because he was like kind of telling me how to do the thing, and I just was like, I know how to do lines. I've done this before.
Yeah. This ain't my first rodeo.
Yeah, and it was very like strange to be doing this like fake drug that was just caffeine powder, to be clear, but in a way that was very weird to be like kind of back doing that, despite it being a thing that I hadn't done for a long time. And I don't know, I did psychedelics. I think out of all of the things I did, acid was the only one that I would even sort of call productive. Everything else was just like a soft option to make me feel more comfortable, when what I should have been doing was like working out and like, you know, eating better and working on creative projects with other people who were driven, you know, and instead I was just sort of despondent, rather than, I think that a lot of people who are doing drugs, what it ultimately is it's a fast forward button. It's, I'm uncomfortable and I want to fast forward to a time when things get better. But the problem is that if you fast forward through a decade and change of your life, nothing gets better. It just stays the same or gets worse because you're not improving things. And you know, I kind of ran across the board with everything, and like psychedelics they change your perspective and they do expand your mind, but they're very dangerous. Like acid like makes you not be in the world for 18 hours.
Oh yeah,
and, like,
yeah, I've done acid and shrooms, and then I did DMT before too. So I
don't think I ever did DMT, but I definitely did mushrooms, which are much more restrained, I think. But the thing about acid is I was always very lucky where I was doing it either alone or with people that I very much trusted. But if you're in that sort of like drug user life and then you're out of your body for 18 hours, like you could hurt yourself, you could accidentally walk into traffic, someone else you're with could be not super trustworthy and hurt you in some way. Like, yeah,
you could even do something as small as that, or that could snowball, like making a phone call to somebody, or that could kind of end up really bad, or like freaking people out.
Accidentally put something in the oven and then forget it because you're tripping and now your oven is on fire. Like there's so many things where, and the thing that led me to sobriety was that there were many times where I was in a place that like was physically dangerous and not where I wanted to be, you know, a house that was full of drug users that I would never have gone to if it wasn't to buy drugs. And, you know, there's just like, it's unclean, there's like mold everywhere, everyone who lives there is like a drug addict,
looking sketchy and shit.
You know, my friends that I knew personally were never like sketchy, but there were always people on the periphery that were like,
the people,
well, I don't want to hang out I don't want to hang out with this person, but I know they'll give me a good deal on whatever thing it was. And I sort of went through phases with different things, but it was like whatever I was into at the time. Like, oh, if I go talk to this like sketchy person who definitely like might get violent, or like I get into his car to buy something and then he's like, hold on, can you just like look out while I go like do some kind of crime, you know, whether it's like petty vandalism or like, you know, robbery or whatever like dumb thing that drug people do to get money,
man.
You know?
It's like you don't know if they're like, gonna have someone leap out of a corner just trying to all of a sudden rob y'all or some shit.
You get roped into these things where it's like, I never wanted to be here, but I am because like 6 hours ago I wanted to get high, you know. And it was like that. It was in my early 20s. I had like a near-death experience where I had taken a bunch of benzos and I drank a bunch of alcohol, which if you are ever thinking about doing, don't do that because it will stop your heart and kill you.
Yeah, don't do that.
No, terrible idea, but I had done it because I was, you know, you were just going
through some shit, and
I wanted to feel euphoric more than I was concerned about, you know, long-term planning or survival. Like these are the things that like all of this added up to a year ago. It was August 18th of last year. I was very drunk and I just realized like I'm super manic and I'm not happy and I'm doing all these things because I'm like getting over a relationship ending badly, and I'm like none of this is making it better.
The whole deal.
Yeah.
Damn.
It's like none of this is making my life better, and it's not making me happier. It's just like, again, pushing fast forward until I like feel okay again. And it's like I realized like, oh, if I want to be better, I have to like make changes to my life and like focus more on my creative output and focus more on like hanging out with my friends who are like doing creative things and moving forward in their lives.
Yeah,
and,
like it was up to your own actions to implement this change.
Yeah, and there's definitely, like, especially if you are in that sort of drug world, a feeling of, like, well, nothing matters broadly, but also, like, I'm not in control of my own life. I'm not in control of my own decisions. I'm not in control of the direction. And, like, often it's because, you know, bad things happened when you were a kid or you were traumatized or something happened. You know, you went through a breakup, whatever it is, something bad happened, and then you're using that as an excuse to, like, wallow in chemical
It's like a poor form of escapism, for sure, because as you said, the time just flies by. You're trying to escape, you're trying to fast forward time. Next thing you know, some years went by, and then you're trying to catch back up with life.
Yeah.
But you're older than a lot of people that are already ahead. Although comparison is not, you know, comparison isn't what you should do with other people. You shouldn't compare to your other people, but when you kind of take a look around, you see the smoke clear, and then you're just like, damn, you know, that's a lot of time that's going out the door, you know, because the older we get, the faster time goes.
Yeah, that's definitely, especially as I hit 25 and time started moving faster, and I started doing like more stuff because I was like worried about this like pressure of like, oh, I'm going to be 30 in 5 years, and I don't like, I'm doing that checklist of like, okay, what are the things that real adults have? And I don't have any of those. And now I'm like trying to make that up. And so it's just what it ultimately led me to was going, okay, like even though bad things are going to happen and even though like life is unpredictable, I need to be as on the ball as I can be and as in control as I can be of myself and my mentality and my own actions. And if I'm like pushing down, you know, my thoughts or pushing down my emotions or trying to ignore a problem, it's not going to get better. You know, sometimes you get that urge or sometimes you get that craving to like go back and do it because it is like easy. The reward is like better to, you know, maintain the progress that you have, you know.
Yeah. And you have a good support circle now of people who can relate to your situation, who you can just like hit up and be like, man, I'm just not feeling the best today, man.
Yeah, and it's definitely, it's something where like having a group of sober people in your life is like very helpful for maintaining that, because like, you know, there's, I don't know whether it's like who came up with it, but that you are sort of the combination of the 5 people you see the most, you know. And I don't necessarily think that 5 is a magic number, but I do think that it is like at least aesthetically true that like, you know, if all your friends are like skateboarders as a kid, probably you're going to pick up a skateboard and try to like learn how to ride around on it at least. You know, if all your friends are on the basketball team, you become a person who is on the basketball team because everyone you know goes and does these things.
Affiliation by association. Yeah,
like if all your friends growing up do drugs, guess what's going to happen to you? You know, and it's like, so if you want to get out of that, it's not that like you hate these people or you dislike, you know, often a lot of them are, you know, struggling and they're having a tough time and you love them and you care about them. And there are people that are still in that I do like very much, you know, care for and hope that they also can, you know, find the peace that I have now. But it's like the thing that you need to do is you need to surround yourself with people who are sober so that like, you know, when you are out, when you do like for whatever reason end up, you know, at a party or at a bar or whatever, and you are given that opportunity, you are able to say no, because it's like, well, you know, I could, and it might even be fun tonight if I drank or whatever, but 2 weeks from now when I'm drinking every day, it's not going to be fun anymore, you know? And other people, like, I also don't think that like everyone who uses drugs or everyone who drinks is an addict. I know that I am, but I don't think that that's universal necessarily, you know? And I think that there are people who can have a healthy relationship with that sort of thing. I think that for me, it just was always, you know, a very like self-destructive thing. And so, you know, the key is to just hold myself accountable and have other people in my life who will also be there to hold me accountable. Yeah.
No longer testing your limits because you see those limits and what's beyond as well.
Yeah, it's knowing that like, okay, it might be fun tonight, but also I might be out of control in 4 hours if I start again, you know, like, and even if it is fun for a day, it's not going to be fun for 6 months, you know?
Yeah, definitely not, man. I know it's not an easy journey to go through, especially, I mean, whether you have people or by yourself. From your own experience, do you have maybe any advice for those out there struggling with their own addictions who, maybe those who want to kick the habit, but they don't have anyone that they can relate to maybe in their own life, and maybe seeing you right now might, speak to them a little bit?
Yeah, I think, number one, the thing that everybody says is like one day at a time. Don't try to be like, I'm gonna quit all of the drugs that I do, or I'm gonna quit alcohol like forever, and I'm gonna make the decision now, because that's too much pressure and you're gonna crack. Like, what you have to do is go, I'm not gonna do drugs today, or I'm not gonna do drugs for a little while and see how it feels. Because that's really how I started. Was initially I wasn't like, I'm gonna stop doing this forever. I was like, I'm going to take a break and then probably I'll get back into it when I can be normal again. And then it was like, as I got longer into it and as I started going to a group and talking to other people who were addicts, I was like able to stop like, deluding myself into thinking that things were okay. But like, you need to take things slowly and you need to digest things in small pieces at the beginning. And definitely like find either like an AA group or some other kind of recovery group that is a group of people, because if you look, even if you're, in the middle of nowhere, I am sure that there is some meeting somewhere near you. If you look online, there are websites. If you like search for, AA meetings in my area or NA meetings in my area or recovery group in whatever place you live, there will be somewhere that has a map with little pins in it that shows you where and when all these things are, and just find a day that you are already free and not doing anything and just go to one. You don't have to talk. You don't have to introduce yourself. No one's going to like hold you at gunpoint and force you to confess your entire history. It's just going there and even like hearing other people's stories. Even if you don't say anything, you'll probably relate to other people and hear something in there that you're like, oh, I recognize something in them because we both like share this thing of addiction. And also, if you go to one of these meetings, find someone who is older, who is someone who has years of clean time, and talk to them and pick their brain. They will be happy to share information with you of like what kept them sober for, a year, for 5 years, for 10 years. And like, talk to one of those old timers. Don't talk. You're going to feel the urge to talk to the other young people who are just starting out, who don't really know what they're doing. But like, if one of them quits and relapses, that's going to make it much more likely for you to. You want to talk to the people who you maybe don't initially relate to as much.
Yeah, find some kind of mentor and someone.
Yeah, who like are able to either mentor you or be a sponsor in the traditional sense, who like have, like wisdom to share with you because they have lived what you're trying to do.
Some relatable life experience.
Yeah. Find someone who does the thing that you want to be doing and then go ask them what works. And 100% of what they do is not going to work for you, but some of it will. And, having some information that works for you is better than having none.
Yeah. Having even just 10% resonate could just like take you a lot farther than never taking the opportunity at all. Absolutely, man. I 1000% agree. And, for anybody out there that it's not impossible, you're not alone, and there is a way out. There is.
For sure. We're all like in this together, and there's like definitely hope. There's definitely like a path forward for you if you want it.
Yeah, and it's not cringe to give a shit. It's not
for specifically the Fish Tank audience, that is something I should mention, is like, you have to, if you want to get sober, you have to do so without irony, and it's going to feel weird. You have to like really be genuine and really be willing to like, be in touch with like emotions and feelings that like maybe your first surge is to be like, I don't feel anything. That's feelings are gay. Like, you've got to push through that and like, do the thing that's going to help you get sober, which is like, be honest with yourself and be like aware of the way that your life is and what you can do in small ways to not fix it all at once, but make tomorrow 2% better than today was, which stacks up over time. You know?
That's definitely the path to maturity, And another thing I actually talked about with Brian was the MDE skit of The Man Who Would Never Be.
Oh yeah, the Charles one where he's in jail. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a prime example right there of, people just not giving a shit, and that it's only gonna, make your life worse. Like, you know, in order to change your life and to get better, you have to give a shit.
Yeah.
You know, I commend you again for your journey of sobriety, man.
I said something on Twitter because I was like, well, it's sort of an occasion for me to celebrate, but the fan like response to that was really good, and there were a bunch of other people. The thing that I really liked, and I tried to respond to everyone. I don't know if I got to everyone, but other people saying like, hey man, like I'm in it too, and I have, you know, this much time, or this much time sober, or this much time clean, and you know, I tried to encourage everyone else who was like on the same path that I am to continue down it, because I think it really is rewarding if you can push through that. And you know, I don't know that like my words on the internet are able to move anybody, but if I can push someone, even if it's in just like a small way, to encourage them to continue making their life better, I would like to do that ideally, you know.
Hell yeah, man. And that's definitely a noble thing to do. And I guarantee it's going to reach, you know, to people, because even if it takes time, you know, it'll sink in. Has being on Fishtank.Live changed your life in any way, for better or for worse?
For sure, it's changed things. I think a lot more people know who I am now. I haven't been recognized like in public out in the world, but like online specifically, like the way that I interact with the internet has changed, because I came in there and obviously I was not like a public facing person. I didn't have a following, and like basically everyone else who was there did, you know. Brian had been on season 2, Scott had been on like every season, you know, Xavier has like a lot of experience, you know, all of them were very good, and they were very like willing to kind of just like let me in and work with me. And I mean, everyone there who was like a returning person, even like all of the fish too, were very willing to like kind of banter with me and like you know, bounce things off me in a way that felt very cool. It felt very cool to like, you know, instantly have other people like accept me into the like world that they had all built.
Yeah, already making you feel like part of the Fish Tank family.
Who like ultimately like was an outsider, and it was like they were taking a risk to like give me, you know, airtime, and I think it paid off for them, and I worked really hard to try and make sure that it would. But there isn't really like a lot of negative things I have to say. Like, I know Jet was barely sleeping at all, Ben was barely sleeping at all. You know, they were sleeping on mattresses in the production room in case something went wrong with the stream or wrong with, you know, on set during the night. Like they were getting even less sleep than I was.
Yeah.
You know?
And then also, you know, they're watching them 24 hours. Y'all are watching them on the cameras and having to keep up with everything too.
Having to make sure that like nothing happens, or like, you know, it's late at night, they have a fire pit, making sure that like nothing escapes and lands on a pile of dry leaves, and like now we have to run out with a fire extinguisher. You know, there are people like monitoring this all the time. Truly, like even the little negative things that were like in the moment frustrating, like I look back and I'm like, oh, but that was cool, and like we were all, you know, in the trenches together. There wasn't anybody who, all of the things that were like, you know, stressful or difficult for me were stressful and difficult for everybody who was there, and we all like kind of bonded over, you know, that experience.
That's fucking awesome though, and I'm sure you gained a lot of lifelong friends and like pretty much new family after that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there are like so many people that I met through there that like I talk to, if not every day, then at least every week or so, because it's, you know, it was very cool to like meet a lot of other creative people who were like, yeah, let's like keep working on stuff. I really appreciate you know, Jimmy for like keeping in touch with me a lot and like inviting me out to you know, come hang out on that big trip that he did.
What'd you guys end up doing? Just kind of like hiking around, or did you stay at a cabin or something?
We stayed at like a lake house up in Maine, and we mostly like kind of visited the town that it was in and went around there and like kind of went sightseeing. But yeah, it was very cool to kind of hang out there with, it was me, him, Duanyay, and then Schitty and Juliana, who were from BitchTank, the like subsequent production after 2.5. I had a really good time and I enjoyed hanging out with all of them. And it is very interesting to hang out, if it's not for the show, with a bunch of people who are also like kind of in this weird like online space, where we all kind of have the same, you know, thing in our lives. We're all kind of going through the same thing of navigating like, okay, there are a bunch of people who know who I am now, and like what do I do with that, and you know, where, like, how do I turn this, do I want to turn this into a career, and like how do I do that, what going forward am I doing with that. And it's cool to be able to like talk to other people who are in the same environment, because it is very strange and it is hard to explain to, like, again, like the people in my recovery group. They know I like work for digital media, but then I can't be like, oh yeah, someone made a 4chan post about me and said that I like hated John, and then I had to go like talk to him personally because there was like a big Twitter back and forth, and then these other people who are like, hey man, I'm just trying to not do heroin today. Like, I don't know what all of this that you're talking about is. I don't know. Like, most of these people like aren't online people. They don't even like know what a live stream is. Yeah. Never mind, you know, explaining to them what Fishtank is. So it is good to have a group of people that I can like relate to in that way.
What are your thoughts on BitchTank, man? I
thought it was entertaining from what I saw. I thought that everyone did like a very good job. I definitely think that especially the last few girls that were there had like an eye for making the most like deranged content possible. And I think the funniest thing to me was when they got like Pearl Davis in there, who is that like weird like conservative influencer lady who I don't know that much about her, but I know that she's like, she thinks like women shouldn't be able to vote and should be like in a wheat field somewhere, you know?
I wonder if it's all just like, trolling, and like she just
I have no idea. Like truly,
it.
I've seen her posts on Twitter a little bit, and I know that she like is one of those deranged political pundit people, but I'm not really involved in like politics world. I'm mostly involved in art world. It was still interesting to see someone who is like a mainstream political commentator with a bunch of like, from what I understand, weird beliefs come into this like crazy reality show environment and have to like interview and pretend to diagnose these girls with like fake mental illnesses that she's, I assume, not qualified to actually, diagnose them with. I don't know what her background is.
Her and Letty's interaction was definitely a trip.
Yeah, but her and Letty's interaction was stellar. That was great television right there.
That was like watching a beam standoff in anime.
Truly like, unstoppable force, immovable object right there. And I thought that was very fun. I thought it was very interesting to bring someone who was like so outside of what Fishtank is and then put them like in the center of it and be like, okay, we're going to focus on you today.
Yeah.
I sort of hope, I don't know that they'll be able to pull like a lot of, I guess celebrity guests or whatever, but I think the idea of, it's a very controversial show and that's just the nature of it. I don't think that it lives up to the controversy. I think that a lot of, even the worst parts of it are people like enduring a stressful situation that ultimately like makes them stronger, Yeah. But I do understand that there is like a sort of weird stigma online of not just Fishtank, but like of MD more widely is like this, super out there, super far right or whatever show that I don't like. Truly, if you just go there and you're a hard worker, like everyone's gonna like you, even if you bicker or you get into fights with this person or that person on the show or whatever. Like at the end of the day, when the cameras turn off, everybody like shakes hands and is like, we're a very supportive community.
Yeah, team effort.
And it's very funny in a sort of like Eric Andre way to like bring someone who like isn't familiar with what this is gonna be into like the weirdest fucking thing we can put them into. And then just
shocking all their senses,
because it's just fun to watch that. And I think that's like really what Fishtank is. It's just like giving someone sensory overload and then filming how they react to it, at a base level.
Have you seen that Hunger Games with Ice Poseidon? That's just, compared to Fishtank, it's a shit show.
Yeah, I think it's very funny because, like, there were times during 2.5 where I was like, oh god, oh no, what if it all like comes apart at the seams? And like, we never even came close to how bad it has gotten there. Like, I saw like a clip today of John leaving and he like got in someone's face, which like the thing about John is that he's gonna get in your face. He's gonna yell at you. He's gonna wave his arms around. He will never lay his hands on you and he will never actually instigate like a real physical fight ever. I've never seen him do that. I've seen him get mad. I've seen him get real mad, but he knows where the line is and he will get right up to it, but he will never cross it. And like, I saw a video, they had some like security guard or bouncer or whatever.
Yeah, I saw that.
Got mad at him and like picked him up and like threw him to the ground and like got right in his face and was like screaming at him and like threatening to hit him and stuff. And it was like, it's just unnecessary. Like, you don't need to do that, and you don't like the level of like aggression.
It's not what security's supposed to do.
Yeah, and also that's like, as a security person, your primary job is de-escalating conflict, not instigating with
throwing
the people
gas
who
on a
work
fire.
there, you know. Yeah, and so it's like, yeah, there's just, it's things like that. It's the fact that like the thing that worked for 2.5 the best was the director cam, like having an FX, either an FX3 or an access cam or a chest cam or whatever, and like in the booth being able to flip through all of the different cameras and put one, so it's like, this is the curated experience and this is what we want to show you, so that the most interesting thing that's going on all of set, all of Schitty, we have one thing that is the coolest part. We're gonna show that to you, and like Jet is sitting at his workstation, always changing cameras, deciding like what is the most interesting thing, and shuffling through on a second monitor to figure out like, if there's something else, what do we need to switch it to. You know, that was amazing, and it really made the narrative like shine, and it really made all of the contestants and the NPCs shine, and it gave everybody like a cool moment that they could have. But with Hungry Games, it's like, as I've taken to calling it, it's like they don't have a director cam. There's just like 100 random streams that you have to filter through, and like, I'm a Fishtank person, so I know John and Letty, and I don't know who most of these other people are. Like, I've heard of Ice Poseidon, but I've never really like watched his stuff. And I've heard like a few of the names of the various people on there, but I don't know who a lot of these people are. And so
never
it's
really
like,
dabbled into their content.
Yeah. If I go there, I'm gonna watch either John's camera or Letty's camera, and I mean, now that they're off, I'm gonna watch nothing, because it's like, there's no curated experience, and it started with, I want to say, like 100 people on there.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, I'm not going to flip through 100 random chest rigs of people I've never heard of and see like, oh, maybe one of these will be interesting.
Yeah,
but
every time I see a clip online, it's just them standing around and talking about who's been shot, who's not been shot, and counting the little marks, and just like debating or arguing.
On 2.5, the thing that worked was that it was kayfabe. It was wrestling. It wasn't MMA. We were like, our NPCs, and especially our like enemies, our vampires or the goblin or the raccoon or the highwayman, whatever we were doing, whatever the like op for was always being told we had everyone in an earpiece going like, okay, this person's at this much HP, so don't knock them out, because we don't want to knock them out of the show unless it's going to be a big moment that's going to make a pop. And it's like, if you just have 100 people running around in the middle of Texas, it's like, and you have no NPCs, you have no narrative, most of the time, people are just going to be like, it's 110 degrees, it's hot, I'm not getting enough water, I'm just going to fucking sit around. And that's not interesting to watch. So what you need to do is you need to have people who are keeping them fed, keeping them hydrated, and like something that is like an objective, even if it's not like elaborate quest lines like we did, have like some kind of capture point that they can contest for supplies, or something for them to do that like makes it worthwhile to play aggressively and do something that like makes it happen on screen.
Yeah, wakes them up, puts a little spirit under them. Yeah.
And it's like, it seems to me, and again, I have not been watching it religiously, I've seen clips on Twitter and that's just about it. You know, but it seems to me as though they don't have a centralized narrative, and they don't have anything that is pushing the contestants to like go do things. And
they're just looking for each other aimlessly, it seems. Even
though we had to throw a lot of shit aside and we had to adjust live, and it was like we were scrambling and like kind of thinking on our feet a lot, we had a good enough plan that most of it survived, and most of what we wanted to do we got done, and all of the broad strokes were there, and everybody, like the people in charge of Jet, had an idea and had a vision, and we had to change small pieces of it, but the skeleton was completely the same as what he wanted.
Yeah, the objective was definitely clear, even to the audience, and the website helped make it clear too.
Yeah, and so it's like we had a main plot line, we had artifacts, we had, you know, a fight with the Duke across the map at the end. Like, that was all, that day one we knew that we were going to do the last day the way we did it. And it's like, when I look at stuff from the Hunger Games thing, it's like, I don't know how this ends. I don't know like what their end goal is, and it doesn't seem like they've put an effort into like developing a storyline of like, oh, these two groups hate each other, so let's like funnel them into contact with each other so that they continue, you know, having beef in a way that's interesting. It just seems like there's like the Marines and the Koreans, and they'll meet up and they'll shoot at each other a bunch, and then they'll back off and like wander around for like a day and a half.
Yeah.
And then they'll just stumble into each other again. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, I would have like a middle ground NPC who would like go to John and be like, hey, I heard one of those other guys like talking a bunch of shit about you, and like he said that like you were like dumb and gay, and like get him all riled up so that he wants to go fight them, you know. And like, yeah, is it gaslighting? Sure, but it funnels people into doing something that's interesting.
Yeah, it's content, it's entertainment.
Yeah, and it's like ultimately, like if you go on something like that, or if you go on something like Fishtank, it's like, you know, you're there to do a show. So like, yeah, sometimes we have to like lie to you a little bit to get you to do a thing that's more interesting than just, I'm gonna like sit around and complain that I'm
I mean, that's a producer's job at the end of the day. You have to, a producer has to ensure that the talent is making, exactly. The producer has to ensure that talent is putting on the performance of their skills, for sure.
And that was another thing that I saw, I think Ice Poseidon was talking to John about, was that like John was like, you know, oh, like on BloodGames they had this, and this, and he was like, I don't have a production team. And I was like, and that's why this is not going well, because like, Jet's fucking smart, and he knew like, if I want to pull this off, I'm gonna need like 30 people, and it's gonna be hard, and it's gonna be, you know, there's gonna be a lot of moving parts. But he picked the right people and he pushed them to like excel. You know, that's a thing that I really value about him as a director and like as a boss, is that like he knows how to, even if it's just like he'll meet with someone for 5 minutes and be like, okay, I need like these 3 things, and then they'll immediately like be pushed to go do the best job that they can at whatever he wants them to do. And he knows how to like push people to excel, and like for the minimum amount of his own like instruction, get the maximum amount of like effort and investment out of the person he's talking to. I think that like what Ice Poseidon is missing is he didn't pick a good team.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a jet.
Or
a Ben.
He needs no, he doesn't have a Ben to like balance him out, and he didn't pick like people who were gonna bounce ideas off of him and go like, oh, this will work or this won't, or like, oh, well, we need to focus on these things because that's going to be interesting, or like he didn't have anyone like checking him and giving him ideas. But he also clearly doesn't have enough people who he can rely on to like go make sure that everybody is drinking water, or, you know, go make sure that everybody has paintballs and a paintball gun that works, that isn't jammed, that isn't fucked up. You know, he doesn't have people going and making sure that everybody's stream camera is working and is pushing to the outside world. Like, we had tech guys running around. If a chest cam went down, someone would run, not walk, like through the entire set to go find them and be like, hey, your camera's out, we're gonna fix it and figure out what's wrong. And we would be on a radio going, okay, like, test the camera battery, test the phone battery, like, test the, you know, is it getting Wi-Fi, does it have power, like, is it all of these different things. There's like a checklist of, you know, 7 or 8 things that make the tech work, and like each one until we find the one that's not working, and then we like swap out whatever battery or swap out an SD card or whatever it is we have to do to get that back up as quickly as possible. And it's like, you know, I know that like Letty's stream just went down, or like Letty's stream got like kicked off of the platform for a while, and it's like, that's like unacceptable for someone who is one of your 2 biggest draws, you know?
Yeah.
And so you have to like figure that problem out. And it's like, obviously Fishtank's different because we're on our own website and we're an independent platform. So there's no worry about like, oh, if someone says something risque or controversial, they're going to get banned. But it's like, you know, if I was running this on like a service like Twitch or something, I would have the phone number of a Twitch rep who I can reliably call and go, hey, or I think they're on Kick, right? You know,
Kick. Yeah.
Like, there should be someone there whose job it is literally like, your job is to be a liaison to Kick, and it's like somebody's stream went down because a bunch of people spam reported it.
Yeah, some kind of tech correspondent.
Like, you go call them right now and make sure that in 20 minutes that stream is back online and is unbanned. You know, like, there should be someone there doing that, and it does not seem to be like there is. And again, I'm an outsider, and I don't know like what the production room there looks like, but it feels to me as though they are very short-staffed and they are spread very thin for the amount of like area they have to cover and the
huge amount of
ambition
land.
of the project that they're trying to do.
Are there any projects that you're currently working on, or anything that you can give a little bit of a sneak peek on that will be coming up in the future?
Yeah, so like the big thing that I'm working on is I want to do a live streamed D&D campaign with some of the people from 2.5. Obviously, I'm like rooting for things to succeed and make a bunch of money and have a team that expands. But once that happens, that's a thing that I will figure out over time, you know?
Hell yeah, man. I have no doubts that it's going to be successful, man, and I can't wait to see the stream of your D&D campaign.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Is there anything you'd like to plug or promote before we go? Or anybody that you'd like to give a shout out to?
I don't know. I feel like I've sung the praises of many of the people, but my Twitter is X no refunds X, and my Twitch is no refunds, but the E is a 3. If you want to talk to me or you have anything to say to me, like send me either a DM on Twitter or like tweet at me. That is like the easiest way to reach me. And, you know, come by the stream, say something in the chat. I'll probably see it. Like I have like more people paying attention to my stuff than I could have ever hoped for, but it's still a small enough community right now that I can like respond to all or most of the messages, you know. Yeah, that's really the only things to plug is like keep watching my stuff, and like I appreciate everyone who is like along for the ride with me. This summer has been so great, and I'm so like happy with how everything has gone. Thank you everyone for, you know, caring about what I do. It means a lot.
Truer words have never been spoken, man, and you know, it's all credit to the guy who kept us hype and hydrated. Y'all be sure to check out Spencer and Sodaman on his social media. He streams on Twitch. I'm going to have all of his links below in the description. Check him out. Give him a follow. Give him a sub. He's going to be putting on some amazing D&D campaigns, playing some games, playing some RPG games, and talking to chat as well. So definitely tune in. Seriously, though, Spencer, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. You know, it's an honor to know your lore, the lore of Sodaman. Not many can be graced with the Zipp secrets. And again, thank you for... Vance has already been sending me enough, but thank you, man. Y'all don't need to keep sending me the Zipp. You know, I appreciate it, but there's enough.
Keep you hydrated over there.
Y'all are definitely keeping me hydrated. You're keeping me more hydrated than I could ever ask for, actually. Thank you. But thank you again so much, Spencer. I wish you nothing but happiness. I wish you well. Definitely going to keep tuning into your streams, and I can't wait to see you on season 3 or another half season. Anything that you have to contribute, we're going to be tuning in. We're going to be supporting, because you are the legendary Sodaman, and we can't get enough of you, man.
Yeah, no, it's been great. It's been fun to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. I haven't really done a big interview like this at all. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hell yeah, man. Well, you enjoy your night, brother, and it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Yeah, thank you as well.
Down for the fun, Rez TKF is live.